Welcome, Monster Rangers, to another edition of the Steam Crow Show. I'm Dawna, and today on RangerCraft Stitching, it's all about the Doom. Cherries, that is.
Steam Crow Show! Steam Crow Show! Steam Crow Show!
Alright, Monster Rangers, let's get to work. Today's lesson, like I said, is all about the Doom Cherries. We've got Doom Cherries and Bacoba in our spell glyph today. So let's go over what those are. Doom Cherries are for divination. They're especially good for our Psychic Rangers. And that is our marrow. Now, the Bacoba, you can take this plant and make a very excellent brain tonic to make your brain strong for divination and to protect you from the monsterologists. So our root is Bacoba, our Doom Cherry is our marrow, and we're gonna put them in a hex. You're only learning 2 new stitches today. We've got the twisted chain stitch and the open leaf stitch, and let me show you what it's gonna look like. So this is my finished one right here. I'll bring this up so you can see it a little bit better. All right, so we have the twisted chain stitch right on the outer edge. And then down here is our Bacoba. Now you're gonna notice in the drawing that there are a lot of leaves and they're close together. So as we're sewing, we're gonna have some decisions to make, but I'll talk about that with you when we sew this part. We've got 2 Doom Cherries here, and then we've got a new leaf stitch that I wanted to show you, which is an open leaf stitch. I like it because it looks a little bit like a rib cage, and I thought it particularly looked great with the Doom Cherries. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna move that off to the side, and I'm gonna pull out my unfinished one. Today I am sewing on a tea towel. So it's 100% cotton tea towel that I washed first, and of course it got and then dried, and it was so wrinkled. I ironed it mostly, and then I transferred it. And when I transferred it, I had an issue transferring. So instead of putting this one aside and rewashing it, I decided to show you how to deal with a bad transfer. I thought this was a good time to do that. So you can see that my graphite paper shifted. All right, it shifted quite a bit. What happened was this: I transferred it, and I didn't put a stiff, hard surface underneath my transfer. I was drawing on top of 2 layers of fabric, so it was a little too squishy, and there wasn't a lot of resistance for the stylus going into the graphite. So my first transfer was very, very light. Now I tried not to move it when I put a little piece of cardboard underneath it, but obviously I moved it a little bit. So I came out with a shifted design, but we're gonna be okay. I redid the transfer. Those areas that were a little bit lighter, I grabbed a pencil and filled them in so that I can see them, especially the important parts. The important parts for me on this anyway are the stems of the Bacoba and the shape of the Doom Cherries and the shape of the leaf and these 2 lines in the leaf. Those 2 lines are going to be our guideline for our new stitch, so we want to make sure that those 2 lines are in there. The leaf, the little leaf parts, I'm not so stressed out about because we can fudge those, and that's going to be great. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I am going to do the outline first, and that is going to be our twisted chain stitch. It is nowhere near as difficult as the Portuguese stem stitch, which had a lot of looping. This one is pretty straightforward, and it's much like a chain stitch. So let's take a look at our handout. We'll hold this up, and this is our twisted chain stitch. So we're gonna insert our needle here, And then we're going to bring up our needle. I apologize. Bring up our needle at A. And then we're going to put it down at B. And when we put the thread underneath our needle and we're making a slanted stitch with our needle, it's going to twist this chain rather than the chain being like a little horseshoe shape. So it's going to make an interesting little loop. So let's get to it. All right. I am going to start at the bottom like I always do, down here. And I'm going to bring this up. All right, so this is our A. All right, and so what we want to do is we are going to make a slightly slanted stitch. Now I am going to turn my design upside down because I want to go this way and it's easier to do it this way. All right, I'm going to bring this thread down here and I am going to put my thread just close to where I came up. So if you look at this, I am just close. I'm going to go in just a little bit. So if I move that thread out of the way, I'm not going to go right next to it like we usually do with a normal chain stitch or insert it in the same hole that we came out of. I want to move it over here. So this is where I'm going to put my needle in. And then I'm going to come out just a ways away from where we inserted the needle, and I'm going to come in at an angle. So I'm using the line of my hex again. I'm going to be above the line and then below the line when my needle comes out. So needle goes in above, needle comes out below, and I am going to pull my thread through. Notice that my needle was over my thread. So I'm going to pull, and there we have the twist. So you can see that. It's a nice twist there. All right, so there we have the twist. Now you can pull it a little tighter or you can leave it just the way it is. So I'm going to leave it just the way it is. So because I like this little loop here. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is see where my thread's coming out here. I'm going to hold that up. See where my thread is coming out here? I am going to put my needle right next to where the thread is coming out. So again, it's just next to it on the other side of that loop. So I'm going to go here, and then again I'm going to make a diagonal, a slanted stitch diagonally here, and I'm going to come out just below that line, and I'm going to pull my thread through just like so. All right, so it looks just like that. So it's a nice little twisted chain, so it has a nice little twist to it. All right, let's put our needle down here, and again we're going to make a little slant. Come on, what are you stuck on? There we go. And of course I'm sewing around my hoop. All right, I keep pulling my thread too far out. There we go. All right, let's do that again. All right, so I have a new camera rig today that I'm practicing with, so I apologize if I go out of frame. I'm learning this new rig. It's a little bit bigger, so I have to be mindful of more things, but we'll get used to it. Hopefully this is looking better. All right, I'm liking this stitch. The reason why I like this stitch is it's a nice quick stitch. It'd be really great for the stem of like a plant that you want to pull tendrils off of. I think that would look really cool, like other leaves or, you know, more ivy like stuff. You could even tighten it up and use it in the bacoba if you wanted to, but I'm going to use split stitch for that one today because it's nice and quick. All right, let's sew this around a couple more times. We'll finish out this side so you can see what I'm doing. I pulled that one a little bit tighter. That's okay. All right, pull this There we go. We'll do another one and end up right on the corner here. Oh, my thread needs to go underneath. See how my thread goes underneath my needle? I need to make sure that my thread is underneath my needle when I pull it. Otherwise, you're not going to get that twist. And you'll see that. All right. So I'm going to keep going all the way around my hex, but you guys don't need to see that. What I'm going to do is when I'm done, I'm going to end this and I'm just going to take my needle straight down to the back, just like you would do with the chain stitch. I'm going to bring that straight back down there and then we're going to knot it off and it'll be all good. All right, let's knot this off real quick. Alright, I'm going to knot this off the right way. I may want to actually use this tea towel. Alright, let's trim it. I'm going to tie a knot in the back. Alright, so there we have the beginning of our chain stitch. So you can see the nice little loops that it makes. And again, I'm using that variegated green, my favorite variegated green. I love it. And for this lesson, I'm using all size 5 pearl cotton, no different sizes, all DMC. And I'm not using very many colors. So this is going to go quite quick. All right, let's get to the Bacoba. So as I was stitching this the first time, I did the outline of the big hex first, all in the chain stitch, and then I did the Bacoba. And the first time I did it, I did this one, and then I did all the leaves as I came down, which is a very efficient way to use your thread. So I would do that on this one since this one's so far away. And you can do it on all of them as they go. The other option is that you can do each stem and then do all the leaves, because we're going to have some decisions to make, especially in this big mess right here. So let's go ahead and let's stitch our stem stitch. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you by stabbing. All right, there we go. So what I am using is the split stitch, and I always do the back split stitch. So I come up, I make one small stitch first, and then I leave a space and I come up, and then I go down and split the previous stitch. I like doing it this way because I like splitting the stitch on the top rather than on the back. But that's just the way I do it. My thread is giving me all sorts of problems. I'm using a tiny needle apparently. It's amazing how I got that thing. All right. So I'm just gonna follow my stitch, my line, excuse me, my pattern all the way up. And just like this, come up and then split the stitch. I hope you guys are having fun stitching. I know I am. I'm looking forward to designing some border designs for you that you can use on bandanas and all sorts of stuff. And I'm kind of taking some bigger stitches here because I want to move along here. All right. I really enjoy doing this for you guys. This is a lot of fun. It gets me a chance to stitch and I really enjoy it. And gives me a chance to create too. Jeez. So what's happening with my needle? I'll tell you. I used too small of a needle, and so my thread is a little thick. So the head is getting a little stuck. So we're almost done. And then I'll swap needles. Maybe. I'm one of those people who hates to waste thread. I will go down to as far as I can get with the thread before I knot it off. Although I do, if it's something that I want to look really, really nice, if I notice that the thread towards the needle right here is wearing out, then I'll stop a little earlier, because that part does get worn out because it goes through the fabric the most. All right, we're gonna call this good. There is our stem. So I did the back split stitch. Now what I'm going to do is I am using satin stitch for the leaves. And again, I talked about how bad my transfer was. All right, so I'm going to use what faint little leaves I have here, but I can also refer to the drawing. All right, and I can look at where some of the leaves are, or you can just freehand it and go for it. Also, if you wanted to change up any of the stitches for the stems, instead of using the split stitch, you wanted to go for that Portuguese stem stitch, which I know you love doing now, you can use that stitch. It's totally up to you. All right, let's make some leaves. So I'm ignoring the top half of this, the top part of the bacoba, because on the tips of the bacoba are little cream colored flowers. So I'm not going to do this part. I'm going to start right down below here. And all I'm going to do is I am going to come up at the tip of the leaf, where I think the leaf is, and then I am going to go down in the stem, or right next to the stem. You don't have to go in the stem directly. And then what I'm going to do, so I have one line, I'm going to take 2 more stitches, one on either side. So I'm going to make them just slightly shorter than the original, the very first stitch that I did. But what I'm going to do here is I am going to go down the same hole that I ended in. So my stitches are gonna go at an angle, just a little bit. So they're gonna have a narrow point. All right, and if you feel like you need to use more than 3 stitches to make your leaf, you can use more than 3 stitches, but I think that looks nice. So again, I made the first stitch, and then the second and third stitch all go into the same hole. Now, if you miss, don't worry about it. That's just a little different shaped leaf. So I'm going to rotate this and do this again. So here is the outside of my leaf. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to make the middle stitch, then I'm going to go on the outside, and I'm going to go in the same hole that I ended that first stitch right there. So I'm going to come up just a little bit down, just like this, and then end in that same hole. All right, just like that. Okay, so let's do another one. I'm going to take that one, again, start in the middle, go on the outer edge, go down that same hole. All right, and I tend to go opposite as I go down. So I'll take this one out, and you can angle them different ways, and if they touch, they touch, and if they overlap, they overlap. So those are decisions that you are going to have to make, and it will work out for you. All right, every leaf is a little bit different. Every stem is a little bit different. Don't feel bad if you end up changing a few things. All right, so as we go down, I'm gonna run into this mess right here, okay? And so here's what I do. What I do is I'll decide which leaf I want to be on top and which leaf I want to be underneath. So I'm going to put this down and I'm going to pull up my finished one, and we're going to take a look at my finished one. All right, so as you can see, let me grab a pin here. As you can see, as we're getting closer down here, what I did was I decided which one needed to go over the top and which one needed to go underneath. And the ones on the outside closest to the border, I can move a little bit. I can move the chain stitch out of the way and I can sew underneath, like you can see here. And I made those leaves a little bit smaller. You can also sew over the border if you choose to sew over the border. But like right here, I have a leaf that a stem that curves around and goes in front of this one. All right, so I decided that this bent one was the one in the front. Now yours does not do that. All right, and the reason why I did that is because these are two different drawings, slightly different drawings. This is the first one. My leaf was a little wonky. I didn't quite like the shape, and my doom cherries got a little wonky. So I wanted to redraw them and make them better for you. So this is a revised, better version. And I decided not to overlap these, but if you want to change it and overlap it, go right ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. But all you have to do is make the decision as to what is going to be in front and what is going to be in the back. You can also reverse it. You could put the tall one with the full flower on the top in front of the one that's curving back and make that one look like it's curving further back behind it. You just need to make those decisions as you go, but you can see that each of my little leaves are made up of 3 stitches, and I tried to keep them all in a point. Sometimes they ended up right next to each other so that I would get a little fatter leaf, and that's just fine. Sometimes they ended up very narrow, like this one, where it definitely all goes down through the same point. Now, I'm not going to take the time to show you how to do the flowers because I do the flowers exactly like I do the leaves. And I don't think you need a refresher course on the French knot. If I change my mind, I'll change my mind and I'll do that towards the end. But I did the flowers very last. You can do the flowers whenever you want. You can do them first and then put the leaves in, or you can do them at the very end or in the middle, whatever you feel like. But the flowers are done the exact same way that I did the leaves. 3 little stitches, all going to the same point, and then I took a French knot and put a French knot right here. All right, what I do want to get to is I want to show you how to do this awesome leaf that looks like a rib cage. So let's get that done. All right, I am going to end this with a knot. And I grabbed too much. There we go. Let's try this again. Oh, this needle. It's a good thing that you see me struggle. This is good. There we go. All right, I'm gonna weave this one. Tuck this back in just like that. All right. All right. We're gonna move up here to this leaf, and I'm gonna get a new needle with new green on it, which I have all set up and ready to go. I'm actually gonna grab this one because this, I think I did 2 needles that are tiny. All right, so let's go up to this leaf and let's take a look at our handout. All right. So this one we're going to call the open leaf stitch. So the leaves that we've done in the past, we can go back to here. Let's see. Nope, it's on this side. All right. The leaves we've done in the past, we used this stitch, which is actually called the fishbone stitch. I called it a leaf stitch because technically it's a leaf stitch. So it makes great leaves. So we're going to do something similar to this, but it's going to be more open. All right. So this one, I decided to call it an open leaf stitch because the stitches are farther apart. They're not right next to each other. And you're going to come up and go over, make a long stitch, and then make a long stitch over the top, and then make a long stitch and make a long stitch over the top. All right, so this is going to look great. Okay, so I am going to turn my design upside down again. Let me move things. I'm getting so many things on my table. All right, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna come up at A, and that's gonna be on that inside line. So this time we have 4 lines to deal with. We've got 2 lines for the center of the leaf, and then we have the outer edge of the leaf, 1 line on each side. We're always gonna come up in the middle on one of the middle lines, and we're gonna go down through the top outside line. Yep. All right, I'm just double checking and making sure. All right, so I am going to start right on the outer edge on the left side. This is going to be A, so you can see where I'm coming up right here. And I took my scissors with me. Let me move those over. All right, so what I want to do is I want to make a nice diagonal line. I don't want to make it too shallow, because if we make it too shallow, then what happens is our rib cage ends up going out flat. And my first one, it looks a little flat, so I want to make it more of a V. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to go up and make a slanting stitch. All right, so what you can do is you can take your thread and decide where you want that thread to go. Do you want to make a slightly shorter one, but make it like right here? Do you want to take it up to here? It's up to you. So I think I like this. I'm going to go right about there. All right, so again, I came up in the middle line. I'm going to go down on the outside line. All right, on the right. Just like so. So there is that slanted stitch. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. So if this is A and this is B, we're going to come up at C again, and now C is going to be right here. All right, so I went from left to right. Now I'm going to go from right to left. So I'm going to come up here. All right, and again, you can preview where your stitch is going to be. Do you want to make it a little shallower or a little bit longer? It's up to you where you would like that stitch to go. I think I'm going to make mine go right about there. And here's why. So if you look at my design, I'm going to take that pin again and use that pin. If you look at my design, I could put it lower, but that's going to widen out my stitches again. And I don't want my stitches so wide. I want to keep them a nice V shape. So if I went here, then that's going to look like my leaf is drawing right into the stem of my doom cherry right here, and that's going to cause a little bit of tension in my design, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go off to the side just a little bit and keep it off that and go in between where I thought I was going to go. I think this is too far. Right here looks good. All right, let's sew that right there. All right, so now we have an X, a very long weird X. But what we're going to do now is we are going to come up on the middle line on the left below the stitch we just made. So I'm going to come up here. Now if you pull this, you're going to get a weird shape, which might look cool. I pulled mine a little bit, but what I want to do is I want to come up just here on that line. I'm a little bit on the outside of it, but I don't want to come up through my stitch. I want to come up next to my stitch so that the needle and the stitch, I'm not splitting that stitch. So what I'm going to do is pull that up, and I'm going to give myself another nice V. All right, and I like that. So I am going to go here. it's nice to be able to kind of preview where you want your thread to go, so that makes it easier. And if you give yourself a more like dramatic slope, then you're going to put more space in between here, and you're going to have more room to have your needle come up. I didn't give myself very much space here, so what I want to do is I'm going to come up on the right side. So we went left, we did the left side from center to outside. Now we're going to do the right side from right to outside. So I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to see where I want my stitch to go, and that's going to look nice right about there. All right, so I'm going to keep going. I'm just going to come up in the center. I'm going to go down on the outside. All right, and then come up in the center. I'm not going to split that stitch. I'm going to move that over just a little bit. There we go. And let's see. Yeah, I'm going to leave a little bit more room because, again, I don't want to line it up with the stem. I want to be just to the right of that. Right there, like that. I like this stitch. I stumbled across it and thought you guys would really like it. Plus, I've always done a traditional fishbone stitch with the with my doom cherries, so it's nice to try something else and see how it looks, and I think the open stitch is perfect for it. Plus it goes faster. Yeah, that looks good. And it's covering, sorry, I bumped my rig. All right. Let's see, right about there. There we go. Just take your time with it. Do a good job. All right, let's go here. Now, it's interesting. So often in like stitch books, you don't see how they end the stitch, and so this one I wanted to end it with you. So I'm going to take a little bit more time. I'm going to speed up though, and I wanted to take a little bit more time with you and show you how to end this stitch. All right, I am going to run out of thread. That's okay. We know what to do. I have thread ready to go. All right. I think I can get away with at least one more stitch. Oh, nope. Nope, 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 nope. Move in a little bit more. There we go. Better. This stitch looks so much better than the first one I did. How much do I have? Oh, let's do one more. I know, there I am pushing my thread. Okay. All right, let's end this. Now, there isn't a lot of coverage for me to protect my knot that I'm gonna do on the back. All right, because basically I just have these long stitches. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to grab just a couple of threads of the cloth, and I'm going to pierce through my thread here. So you can kind of see that. I'm going to go like that. Let me move this out of the way. It's making a shadow. And I'm gonna pull that through to make that loop. And I'm gonna go through it twice. I'm gonna move that loop down. And I'm gonna leave a little bit of a tail. And the reason why I'm gonna leave a little bit of a tail is because I can pierce that tail down with the outer stitch that I'm gonna be doing, which is I'm just gonna use the split stitch again because I love the split stitch. So I'll use that on it, and I'll weave that in or pierce through that so then it's more secure, and then this all won't come out. All right, so do I have a knot at the end of this? I do. Excellent. Let's go back to stitching. And the great thing about this one is, and again, I'm using a knot on the back of this. Normally I would weave this through, but I'm just going to use a knot. I'm going to start here. All right. And then I'm going right back just how I started down here. I'm going to start back up here. Go down. I'm using that small needle again. All right, it's a different small needle than the first one, but it's a small needle. All right, we are almost done. There we go. And I think I'm gonna do one more. Do I want to? Let me look at it this way. I am going to, is that gonna move it too much? See, now I'm making a decision. Now you guys get to see me make a decision. Because that went right there, and if I come up right here, let's come up right here. All right, and I'm gonna go down right there. Yeah, that looks good. All right, and I pulled a little bit of the cloth in making that decision. Okay, I like how that ended better. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we are going to do the split stitch. I'm gonna start here and I'm gonna go around, and then I can also veer off and do the stem stitch here and do my stems for my doom cherries too, so I can efficiently use my thread. So I'm just going to come up at the tip, and I'm gonna make a stitch going down. Now you could, if you wanted to, just do a running stitch, basically just sewing in between the stitches like this. So let me show you. So we're going to do one stitch here and one stitch here. All right, and those are just connecting those rib cages. You're going to end up with some longer stitches up here, but you could split that in half with the same stitch. If you want something tighter, you can use the split stitch, and I kind of prefer the split stitch. I don't know, it's just tighter, but when you use the rough needle like I am, it's not as nice. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some smaller stitches. All right. And I'm splitting the stitch just like I did on the stem of the Bacoba. And I think that looks nice. On my first one that I did, let me find that again. There it is. On the first one, I just connected. I did a running stitch. So I just connected those ribs of the leaf, those lines of the leaf, and I thought they were okay, but I don't always like the break in between the stitches, that kind of bump in between them that you see. I kind of like the look of the stem stitch where it's, or the split stitch where it's more continuous. So I decided to go with that. So let me sew a couple more stitches, and then we're gonna move on to the Doom cherries, because the Doom cherries are awesome. All right, so I bring my stitch up, my thread up from the back, and then I pierce the previous stitch and I bring it down. So it's just making a tighter line, and I really think I prefer this. But again, this is your RangerCraft, so you are allowed to change these stitches and to do the stitches however you want. I'm just giving you a pattern. You can also change the colors. So if you wanted to make ghost doom cherries, you could make white ghost doom cherries. I think that would be just fine. Mine are going to be bright red because it'll look good on the red with the on my tea towel here, or dish towel. Tea towels are smaller, I think. All right. Now, you don't need to watch me sew this whole thing. So I'm going to stop right there. But if you compare the two, where did my... So let's compare the two. All right, let's look. So here I have the split stitch, and here I have a running stitch. And so I just think the split stitch looks a little neater. The running stitch is okay, but I got a little wonky right out here. So I think I like that better. So I suggested the split stitch in the instructions. It's up to you. You can do either or. They're both correct. All right, let's knot this off. Ooh, I'm getting caught in my pin cushion. There we go. So I have a collection of pin cushions. I have 3 of the tomato ones with the little strawberry that hangs off of it to sharpen your needle. I love those. So I have 3 of those. I inherited 2. And then I inherited 2 other pin cushions, and one is a awesome turtle that was in Daniel's family, and it's head bobs, and I'll show you that one another time. I don't have that one with me, but the one I'm using today over here was my grandmother's, and it's this cute little antique shoe. I love it. I've never seen one as ruffled as this. I've seen a lot of simpler ones, but I really like the detailing in this, and I love the heel, and it's just a cute little shoe that I imagine a very cool Stitch Witch would wear. So yeah, there we go. All right, you can see the mess that happens over on the side off camera. All right, let's do the Doom cherries. All right. So I have sewn Doom cherries in numerous ways. I have used the split stitch and followed it around, just like the skull that we did on the moon one. So I've sewn them with the split stitch, which I like a lot. But today we're going to practice doing the long short stitch that we did last time on our cute little ghost. I did that over here, and this was my first attempt. My second attempt went much better, and I liked this one because it's a little more random. I can take shorter and longer stitches, but there's always a side, like around the eyes, because I like to make my eyes big and small, where you have this tiny little area, and so it's really nice to be able to, I think, control that and make it look rounded. So let's give this a shot. All right, I am going to start in the top middle. I know that's kind of crazy. Actually, shall we do... I can angle it this way. All right. So cherries have volume and they go around. And so the direction of your stitching can make it look more round. It can make it look flat. It can do whatever you want. So it's a lot like drawing. So I'm going to try something with you guys. All right. Thank you for letting me try this. I am going to take this stitch. I'm going to take a long stitch kind of out at this angle here. And then I'll do a short stitch here. Now remember, we're doing long and short stitch on this. So what I'm doing is a randomized satin stitch. So I am just going along the outside. And I am making my stitches long and short. Just like that. I'm trying to make them right next to each other so that there isn't much of a gap. But what I like about this stitch is that I can fill in with it. All right, so you can see how this is going. All right, so I'm gonna move, I'm gonna travel a little bit, and I'm gonna make a short stitch here. I got a better needle this time. Make a nice short stitch, but I'm going to kind of straighten my stitches out. I'm starting to get tangled up over here. Let me move some stuff out of the way. There we go. Much better. Oh. So my thread twisted on the back, and I don't want that to get in the way, because if I don't take care of this, this is going to unravel and it is going to loosen the stitches in my doom cherry, and I don't want to loosen the stitches in my doom cherry because you'll have to go back in and fix it, and I don't want to have to go back in and fix that later. So there we go. It just got twisted. So just take your time. Don't pull on it too tight though when you're trying to undo that knot. All right, we're back in business. Sorry about that. I'm gonna bring this one. Yeah, let's bring this one. Oh, I could bring it down to here. Let's do that. I'm just gonna bring it down to the eye. Bring this up here. We'll do a short one. And bring this down. I'm going to bring this one again down to the eye. Let's see how that looks. And then I'm going to cheat. I just want to see how this looks. I'm going to bring that thread up here. I'm going to fill in this gap. See how that looks? Do I like it? Yeah, I like it. All right, we can keep doing that. All right. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna bring a line out here a little bit. I'm gonna make some shorter stitches. Here, I'm leaving some space because what I noticed is that my lines were starting to angle this way, and I don't want them to angle this way. I want them to angle this way. Not like this, but like this, because I want it to curve around the cherry. All right, so I'm going to use my stitches to correct that. And I'm gonna do one more. Just use some smaller short ones. That one will be a really short one. There we go. I could have made that one a little bit longer. We'll do that. Oh, there we go. Untwisted it. Now, when you're doing this, since we didn't outline the cherry, You need to take your time and pay attention to where your needle is coming in. If you're coming in up on the line, you need to make sure that you're staying on the line of your pattern. If you're coming up just on the outside of the line, then you need to be consistent with that also, because that'll help make that smooth curve. Now, you can take a little shorter stitches, or you can do this all in one stitch. See how wide this is, this area? So you can go like this and do a short stitch, and then do a long stitch. My fabric is squeaky. Like so, which looks kind of cool. I have a gap there, so I'm going to fill in my gap. I actually have a gap right here too, so I'm gonna go back and fill in this gap right here. Just like that. And I'm gonna go here and fill in my gap. Again, since we're using, you know, this might be a dish towel that we use, shorter stitches are a little bit better. This leaf is a little long, it can get pulled, but it'll help being held down with the outer edge stitch. But if you feel like this is too loose for a tea towel, you could always do a couple of like long split stitches if you wanted to, but that may complicate it a lot. Or you could do a fill and use the fishbone stitch. So you could do that. All right, let's do this. Let's see if I take a slightly longer one and then go right here and then go right next to that. Let's see what happens there. Hey, that's looking pretty good. All right, so all I'm doing is I'm going around and I'm working from this side and I'm going to the left. It's just the direction that I tend to go in. All right, so keep going and just go until you're filled. And then when you get to the other doom cherry, then you're gonna create that curve just like you did that curve here. You can create that curve here, and that's gonna make your doom cherries look different. But I really like this long and short, and the more I do it, the better I get at it. And this is looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So what do we do when we're in the middle? The middle's up to you. You can choose to take it out like so and then go this, you know, you can go out like a sun. I tended to bring mine down more because I want that cherry to have that face that kind of comes down. So if that makes any sense to you, I'm trying to describe curves with stitches, which is new for me. So I didn't want it to radiate out because they'll run into each other, but if you can come up with a creative way to do it, do it. Just experiment and have fun. You're gonna figure out what works and what doesn't work for you. So today, I offer you a strong brain and good divination right before Halloween. This is gonna look great. And I'm really glad that I got to show you the difference of these two on black, how this looks on black and how this is looking on a cream colored background. So I know there's not a lot here to see, but I'll photograph it when I finish it. This one's going so well, I think I'm gonna finish it. All right, good job. All right, Rangers, that concludes our RangerCraft Stitch edition of Doom Cherries. I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing your stitches, and thank you again for all your support and everything you've done for us. I know we say it a lot, but we truly mean it. Take care. Have a wonderful Ranger day. Ka!